we have a story like Epstein in the pre-social media era. You can say, oh, the gatekeepers wouldn't have allowed us to debate the story. Yes, the gatekeepers would have told you where there is no information, right? There's been no there on Epstein for decades as far as this deeper conspiracy that goes to all these government officials and elites and all this stuff. To me, the simplest way to know that is if Ghislaine Maxwell truly had the keys to some mythical conspiracy that Jeffrey Epstein was helping to run with this crazy pedophilia ring that seemed to include all the upper echelons, right? She doesn't use that to not serve time. Remember, she's serving time. She was convicted for 20 years. Some people believe it was too lenient, but she's behind bars for 20 years. So if she had some hidden information, do you really think she withholds it and agrees to serve, a lesser? Somehow she agreed to sort of keep something under wraps to only serve 20 years? Really? Really? The daughter of some millionaire Canadian media empire holder, and her father, Robert, really? Right? Like, you really have to stretch your conspiratorial brain in order to sort of make all of this even current conspiracy work, that there's some sort of, that this is like Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Epstein files. If somebody sees them, boof, they blind people and and everything it bleeds, right? The Epstein files are simply, who did he hang out with? Well, it turns out he hung out with Donald Trump a lot, right? And they were super close friends. And I get back to this, right? The only thing that makes you scratch your head about the entire Epstein saga is how defensive the president is coming across. He seems so worried about it. The irony is that the facts that not just he has said about his relationship with Epstein, although it's now changing again, but in the past and what's been confirmed are basically, it's no better or worse than Bill Clinton's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Gates's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, right? The one person that seems to have gone too far in that relationship with Jeffrey Epstein got exposed as Prince Andrew. And if you think there was somebody else other than Prince Andrew, do you really think this is kept under wraps? I always love, one of the criticisms I used to would have leveled at me when I was sitting in the, I always said, when you're sitting at Meet the Press, you're sitting in first chair of the of traditional media, right? And so, there was this belief that somehow, I alone was making decisions, or me and the lords of Sunday show host were having our meetings deciding this is true and this is not, which of course none of that is true at all. But you sit there and at one simultaneously, people said, no, you alone can, do this. You're dictating this media narrative. And oh, by the way, you have no power anymore and nobody's listening to you. So am I dictating the media narrative, or do I have no power and nobody listens to us anymore, right? Like, both things can't be true at the same time. But when it comes to sort of the trollish natures of partisan hacks on social media, some of whom are like bold-faced name partisan hacks, some of whom are distinguished law professors. I hope they're better at teaching than they are opinion making and journalizing, if you will. But that's just, I'll leave that for another day. But the point is that there is no grand conspiracy here. There just isn't. At this point, there's a conspiracy to withhold whatever this version of the government, Pan Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, and the president of the United States, they're certainly trying to play up the idea that there are these hidden files. They're not releasing them. If they did release them, the bad stuff was created by Obama and Comey, but the good stuff was created by them, right? You have to sort of, and then of course you have to ask yourself, if there was such horrible information on Donald Trump, why didn't the Democrats release it? Now, maybe that's because Merrick Garland believed that you should just sort of follow the rule of law. And if you had no information to indict somebody, you can't just release speculation. And so obviously now, the Trump administration was going to release speculative, unverified information as long as it was about political opponents. The problem is, and this is the most likely explanation here of why you see nothing on the Epstein file, is they went through it and they realized, oh, it isn't going to just tarnish Bill Clinton or Bill Gates. It's also going to tarnish Donald Trump. and Alan Dershowitz and some other people that are friendly on the right. And you've seen like Alan Dershowitz is obsessed with this idea that any information they leak, if it's unverified, that he's going to sue, and frankly, he has every right to. Right, the government can't go out there and defame people. You can't just, and this is why the FBI and the Department of Justice have had a policy over the years. They don't announce whether they're investigating somebody. You may investigate somebody and find out there's no there. But the minute it's sort of like, when did you stop beating your wife? Right? How do you answer that question? When somebody says, oh, there's a federal investigation against you. Well, if they don't find anything, how many people are still going to think you might be guilty because they've heard there was a federal investigation? And you have to carry that around with you like a tarnish, which is why this weaponization in general that Donald Trump has been doing and Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and what they're doing over there at the Justice Department. And they really are now, they're doing everything they've accused previous administrations of doing, which of course just means here we go. So if already one side thought the Department of Justice was being politicized, the other side, in order to beat back that political argument, is going to politicize it in another direction. Well, if you do that, then everybody's going to believe it's politicized. And we're going to have an entirely tarnished Department of Justice, which I think we already have now. That's just why it was so damaging when Joe Biden issued those blanket pardons for Hunter Biden and his family. All he did was give cover to Donald Trump to do the same thing for everybody as they leave office. And now we have created essentially the ability that if you can get into an administration, you can probably pull off some corrupt practices and essentially go uncharged because you're going to be under the partisan umbrella of pardon protection by that administration. So I start off with this because I do think that the story that everybody is missing on the rise of the fact that Jeffrey Epstein is at feeding frenzy moment, this is a manufactured social media algorithmic outrage that has never been based in enough facts to justify it being front and center. But here we are, every Sunday show leading with it. Every major news organization we have to deal with it. And we have to deal with, and the real issue is we have a broken information ecosystem, primarily broken by the people who now control distribution of all information, which is the big tech companies, right? Google, Facebook and Meta, Amazon, you name it, all of the big five, and how they decide what you see, right? This gets it to the famous filter bubble argument that Eli Pariser wrote about. It's like, why do the 9/11 conspiracy theorists take comfort that they're not wackadoodles, even though they're wackadoodles? Because they can just Google 9/11, 9/11 truth or crap, find enough information online to make it seem as if it's true.